Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, imagine getting to spend just a day or two with your newborn before being forced to give it up for adoption. Happened to a Barrie woman who's looking for an apology and is fighting to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Something new at Clearview's EcoPark, a wind phone. It's not hooked up to anything, but it's getting a lot of use. We find out why. And have you noticed a lot more flag waving as we get set for soccer's World Cup? Fans supporting their country from their front doors, their car windows and hoods, even their side mirrors. Been a busy time for a flag maker in Barrie. We get the conversation started after this. This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Imagine being 15 years old, pregnant, giving birth, and having your baby taken away from you, not because you wanted to give it up for adoption, but because the government decided you were a teenager and unmarried, and this is the way it's going to be, and your parents agreed. Happened to a Barrie woman, Christine Nayler, and hundreds of thousands of others. Nayler at the fore of an effort to get an apology from the government. She shares her story with our Ian McLennan.
Christine, you spent 4 days with your newborn daughter at a hospital north of Newmarket in 1982. Your baby was taken away from you. Why?
Because of my age and that I was unmarried.
How old were you?
15.
Why did they take your baby away?
Because that's what they did at the time. My story is my story, and I broke the silence and shared my story because the silence has gone on too long. But my story is only one of over 350,000 stories that are similar. So this was a widespread practice that involved all different types of institutions, and it went on from the 1940s well into the 1980s.
And was this a federal government policy, and did it involve just unwed mothers, or was it related to age? Why was it happening?
It was young unwed mothers, and it was like institutional, so across like government agencies, churches, hospitals, social service agencies. And it was due to stigma, shame, the belief that, to be a fit mother, you had to be married.
At a certain age?
And a certain age, yeah.
Did you have the wherewithal to look after that baby at age 15?
I would have if I had the supports that were in place for other people. I didn't even have a chance to see whether I was fit as a parent. I was just told that I had no rights because of my age, and it was my family's decision whether I kept the baby or not. And
when you say family, whether your
parents, yeah,
they decided no, you couldn't keep the baby.
Yeah.
Where were you? Were you in the hospital when? And who are these people that came and took your daughter?
Well, the hospital, like she was left there. I had to leave the hospital without her. So,
what was it like? It sounds simplistic, but to leave that hospital and not bring home the baby?
I didn't believe it was actually going to happen until I was actually leaving the hospital without her, because I just thought, like, this is my child, but it's also their flesh and blood too. This is not actually going to happen. They're not going to make me leave the hospital with her. So the moment I walked out of the hospital without her, I still believed that we were going to be going home together. And I referred to the day that I left the hospital without her as my death day, because that was the death of my innocence, my belief that the world was a good place, and that the people that loved me would look out for me. And it just... It changed everything about how I viewed the world, leaving the hospital without her that day.
Were you angry at the system or your parents that said you couldn't keep the baby? Or how did you manage? Because at 15, how do you process all that? And
for a long time, I was angry at my mom. So she was a single mom. So I was angry at her because I thought it was her fault, her decision. And it wasn't until years later that I learned that this was a systemic policies, and that she was just as much a victim of this as I was. It took me a long time to forgive her, but she had felt the pressure by her family, and her father felt the pressure by the society as a whole that we lived in at the time. And there was institutions and churches and stuff that were all involved in this, saying that, like, you cannot be young and unwed and have a child and be like considered a decent part of society.
And did where was the father? Did the father have any role in terms of
the father's my husband?
Yes.
He didn't know. Like, that's how it was back then. The girls were just sent away, and he had no idea where I went or what happened to me. He just knew that one day I was gone, and we did reunite years later, and we got married, and we had 3 other children, and we're still married to this day.
So you're among 300,000 women, 300,000.
350.
350,000 forced to give up their babies between the 40s, post-war, and into the 70s, possibly, in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Decades later, you have launched a petition asking the federal government to acknowledge their role, and you're seeking an apology. Where are we at with that right now in terms of, the signatures and where, because you have been to Ottawa several times, networking?
Yeah, so I created the petition in order to force a government's response, because in 2018 there was a Senate study and a Senate report was released, and there was 4 recommendations within that Senate report, and the first one was for a national apology within 1 year of the report being released. And it's 8 years of ignoring that report and of government silence. And so by me creating the petition, I forced the government to have to respond to the petition and to that report. And so we're in the 45-day period where the government has to, within 45 days of the petition being tabled in the House of Commons, they have to issue a government response. And so my hope is that with people hearing my story, which again, I just want to remind is only one of 350,000 stories, that they will feel compelled with the evidence that the Senate report actually documented and the testimonies of people, that they will follow suit with countries like Australia, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and now the UK is in the process of issuing an apology as well, that Canada will do the right thing by the 350,000 women and their children and their families that have been affected by these policies and this harm.
Liberal MP Karina Gould, as well as a member of the Senate, have joined you and others calling on Ottawa to make a formal apology. What will that do for you? Does it go beyond that? Someone might say, well, maybe you should have financial compensation, or what healing will it bring? So the apology is the first step in healing, right? Because just saying I'm sorry and that's it, that doesn't really, it's just a statement, right, without action. But it will bring healing, the start of healing. It will open the doors to communication. It will help people understand what happened to us. Because for the longest time, the shame and stigma that was attached to my pregnancy and to all these other pregnancies kept women silent. It kept them thinking that they were bad people and that they had done something wrong, kept us from getting help. Even talking about it in our own family. Like I said, I forgave my mom, and I think my mom, at the time, she thought she was doing the right thing, but then when she saw how it had traumatized me, I think she spent her whole life trying to make up to me for that. But we never talked about it until she was dying, and that's how long it took us to be able to talk about it, because silence was there, right? And having an apology and having the government acknowledge that this happened to this amount of women and their children, and we're sorry for the part that we played in it, that it helps people to understand what happened, and it opens the doors to communication, which is a first step towards healing, because you can't heal when you're keeping everything inside yourself. For me, that's really important. There's women that have died that were waiting for an apology, and other women are getting older, and they deserve this apology before
before they pass, right?
Or some have never seen their children.
Some have never seen their children. People say that I'm one of the lucky ones because my daughter and I, reunited when she was 21. And I am so blessed that I have her in my life. But reuniting doesn't just mean it's happily ever after and erase the 21 years that we didn't have together, right? I didn't raise her. I didn't have those 21. I met her as an adult, right? So the relationship that we have is different than the relationship I have with my other children. And there's always an insecurity on both of our sides of losing each other again. You
met your daughter for the first time in a coffee shop. How did the communication begin in the first place?
Through a letter. There's a process of wanting to reunite. And so she filled out the forms and all of that. And I received a letter saying that she was looking for me. And if I wanted to pursue making contact with her, then I was to call a number, which automatically I did. I got the letter on a Friday afternoon and I called immediately, but the office was closed till Monday morning. So that was like such a long weekend for me because I couldn't wait. I waited 21 years. I didn't want to wait a day longer to see her and contact her. So I spent the whole weekend making like an album, going through all my photos and making a family album for her so she would know the history of her family, and called immediately on Monday morning. And we met Monday afternoon and we closed the coffee shop. They could see something profound was happening and they were sweeping and putting all the chairs up on the tables around us. But we were crying, we were hugging. They didn't want to tell us to leave, but eventually they had to tell us to leave. And then the next day, I didn't want to let her leave because I was afraid. I didn't see her for 21 years. What if she didn't come back the next day? But the next day I came back with my husband and my other children, and they got to meet her too. The first day was for me and her. And I asked my husband, I said, I just want to have this moment with her because I need this moment, just me and her.
When you saw your daughter, she was your daughter, but was she also a stranger too?
She wasn't a stranger. I was scared. What if I didn't know? How am I going to recognize her? Would I know her immediately? And I did. And my first instinct was to run and hug her, but I had to hold myself back because I didn't want to scare her off. And I didn't know if she would be open to that. And she immediately looked at me and she said, your eyes, because she had remembered my eyes from, she said, always, she pictured what her mother would look like. And my eyes always came to her. And we went inside to order, and we placed the same order. It was just, yeah.
And is there trauma there, both you and your daughter, from the experience that she went through too?
For sure, and that's part of what the apology is, right? It's for the to acknowledge that this harm was done to us. You don't separate a mother and her child and expect there to be no trauma. She always felt like she was missing something. I always felt like I was missing something. I was expected, this is how we were treated, me and all the other mothers, that you're just sent away, you have your baby quietly, and then you're sent back home, and you're supposed to just continue on with your life like nothing had happened, like your child never existed. And you can't do that. I tried to do that, but I couldn't do that. Lived with suicidal depression and anxiety and PTSD and all of that, and having another child doesn't take away that loss, that emptiness, because your heart grows bigger with each child, and there's a spot in your heart for each child. And it actually makes it worse because when you have another child, every milestone they go through, it makes you realize what you missed with that child.
And she's been part of your life ever since, and that of your family?
Yeah. But it's hard for her sometimes, right? Because when we're sharing family memories of camping trips and stuff like that, these are things that she was robbed of. She had 3 full siblings and a mother and father, and she wasn't a part of that family. And it wasn't her fault and it wasn't my fault. It was the system and the pressure and the coercion forced on not just the mothers, but the families. Like I said, it took a long time for me to realize my mother was as much a victim as I was in this.
So, what's that phone doing in the middle of the Clearview EcoPark in Stayner? Has its own wooden booth, but it's not connected to anything. Or is it? It's another wind phone, this one courtesy of Hospice Georgian Triangle. We placed a call on a rotary phone to Hospice Interim Community Support Lead Vanessa Vorberg to find out more about it.
First off, what is a wind phone?
A wind phone is a disconnected phone that's set in a nature location, and people typically use a wind phone to connect with loved ones who have died. And so wind phones first came out in 2010. Someone in Japan named Itoru created one to connect with his cousin who had died, and he put it in his backyard. And then after the tsunami in 2011, he actually created it and moved it to a public space, and so mourners from across the country came to speak and connect with their loved ones and have some care through that wind phone.
Is the wind phone an extension of what Hospice Georgian Triangle already does in terms of grief and bereavement programs?
For sure. I think it's such an important part of our work because wind phones are symbolic of how we want to create more grief care spaces in the community and compassionate care spaces in the community. So we know that sometimes in our communities we're a little bit scared of death, we're a little bit scared of grief, and so how can we create more space for people to receive care both independently and in connection with others? And so having a wind phone in a beautiful location like the EcoPark can help people get connected to their loved ones who have died, but also get connected to further supports. So there's some information with the wind phone about Hospice Georgian Triangle's grief and bereavement services.
Give us an idea where within the park in Stayner and how that site may have been chosen?
Yeah, so Amanda Murray from the Clearview Township reached out to us. She had acquired this old rotary phone and had the idea to put it in the local park, and we were just so enthused, and I love that it's been a grassroots movement that it's come about, and it's close to the pond loop in the EcoPark.
I believe in Bradford, West Gwillimbury, the wind phone was launched at Scanlon Creek Conservation. Mm-hmm. So is this becoming kind of the new normal in the region or elsewhere?
I sure hope so. I think wind phones are definitely taking off across the province and globally too, and so I hope that we see them begin to become more and more popular and more normal. That's part of what we talk about with grief work, too, is we want to have space for people to express grief and to mourn publicly and privately. And so to see wind phones becoming more and more popular is a wonderful and heartening kind of endeavor.
Everybody grieves differently, and obviously it's a peaceful setting, as it said in the media release. Are there any areas there that it will be very private, or in terms of numbers of people that might be there? I guess it just depends on time and day.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, I think people can go out whenever feels comfortable to them. I also know occasionally people will set up a wind phone on their own property. It's a phone that's disconnected in nature, and so to be able to have that wherever you need to have that is a beautiful thing. And if there is no wind phone, those conversations or those kind of words of connection and comfort can still happen. But I think a wind phone is a beautiful symbol. It's very tangible for people too.
And there will be information at the wind phone about Hospice Georgian Triangle and the programs offered in terms of grief, bereavement, and beyond?
Yeah, that's right. So there's a little sign on the top of the wind phone booth saying what it is, and then on each side there's some writings, and on the bottom, because the phone does have kind of a door, so it's protected from the elements, that anyone can just open, and there's a QR code there with some of that'll take you straight to our website, and you can get connected through our website. We have a contact us form. People are welcome to call or email me directly as well. We have a team of registered therapists and social workers here who provide support, as well as volunteers who provide peer support. So definitely, if people are looking for grief and bereavement support, I'd encourage them not to hesitate to reach out. That can be a hard call or email to send, and also it's a real act of courage.
Got your flag yet? A hood cover for your car, a sleeve for your side mirror declaring your allegiance during soccer's World Cup. Been a busy time for flag makers leading up to the tournament. Here again is our Ian McLennan with Maureen Christie, Vice President of Sales with Flags Unlimited in Barrie.
Driving around Barrie, I've seen some Brazilian flags, Spain, Croatia, Canada, obviously. You're a big player when it comes to a lot of major sporting events, though you're not a corporate sponsor with FIFA and the World Cup. What's the connection, though, in terms of what you are doing as a business?
Well, we certainly have a lot of interest in, all of the country flags of all the teams that are playing. So, that has certainly seen, a spike in activity in the last few weeks. From a corporate point of view, we do a lot of events. So we've certainly had, different restaurants and hotels and different sponsors that are working with FIFA reach out looking for whether it's country flags, whether it's little, hand wavers for, the fans in the stands. We've also seen a lot of interest, as you can imagine, in car flags. So that has been, a big purchase for fans across the country.
And is that what Flags Unlimited has been asked in terms of what you are providing or have been asked to provide?
In terms, directly to the organization?
Or hotels or businesses that are, looking to, follow the World Cup and celebrate it in whatever way they choose?
Yeah, it's primarily, our legacy products, which would be, the flags, whether it's Canadian flags or the country flags. Individuals are very much, more interested in the car flags and, things that they can actually display cheering for who they're, fans for.
Have you had to step up anything in terms of production?
Oh, yeah. No, we ramped it up early on knowing that, the interest was going to be there. And we have other partners that are in the same space that, we're in that we know have done the same thing. And when it comes to big events like this, we do tend to kind of partner and there's a solidarity between, like-minded companies because you can get, really inundated with a lot of inquiries and, needs for different products that it wouldn't take long for, us to blow out of a certain product quickly. Certainly, not Canadian flags because, we have tens of thousands of those on site at any time. But in specific to the countries participating in the World Cup, we definitely, ramped up our production and our stock of all of those.
What's the turnaround time to get a Uzbekistan flag?
Pretty quick. We have, we actually have all country flags in stock all the time. So, yeah, but right now, if you come into our retail location, not a lot of people know that we actually, do have a store right on site. You can get one right away. And our, online shopping is about 24 hours, 48 at the very least, or at the very latest, depending on where you are located in the country.
Do you track what flags are being gobbled up right now?
Well, it's still early, but, we do, we obviously, keep an eye because we want to monitor our stock. So, the favorites are always the highest purchased, but Canada is definitely by far the number one flag that we're selling right now.
So, obviously World Cup, international scale, or whether it's Super Bowl, maybe a lower level in North America. But is this something you plan for? Obviously this World Cup's been on the radar for a number of years.
Yes. So, yeah, our production and our planning started, sort of late last year. Anytime that there is a big event, we obviously had a lot of planning that went into the Olympics because we knew that would be a huge thing this earlier this year. So we knowing when we've got a national stage where people are very patriotic and want to show, their Canadian pride or their nationality, where they come from and who they're cheering from, because, there's a lot of Canadians who cheer for other countries because that's where, their family is from or that's where their allegiance lies. So we certainly plan ahead for that. And, when there are sometimes big political situations within the world, we always see a big, spike when that happens too. Unfortunately, when, the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine, we saw a lot of people reaching out looking for Ukrainian flags. So, it's not just, sporting events, it's world events that, we're always on the ready and willing to help those who are looking to support, their countries.
I know when the premiers met up in Muskoka, you had the flags of the different provinces lined up as the premiers headed north to Muskoka. Anything on the flagpoles in light of the World Cup? I know there's a lot of copyright and what have you, but is anything going to be different?
Well, I mean, you kind of nailed it. We're very restricted in what we are able to do in certain, world stages when it comes to FIFA and the Olympics. So, we're right now our banners that are on site are promoting Canada.
It's a safe bet, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian for carrying the load, to Logan for his technical expertise, to Gio for getting the word out, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Blue Sky and X at Barrie 360, on our website, barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcast available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.